Hello guys, welcome back to the Geek Show podcast. This month I am joined by not Will, but I'm joined by Alex.
Hello.
It's a bit like if you took Annie and then you gave him, well, you gender swapped him, and then you gave him a pair of headphones that are wireless, in which he always wore around his neck. That'd be Alex.
I think that's a pretty poor description.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, Dan, if you want the jokes to really make sense to anyone that knows us, don't add in the headphones bit.
You wear wireless headphones.
Yeah, but how often do I wear them nowadays around you guys?
Not that much,
There
but
you go,
still
then.
wear wireless headphones all the time.
There you go then. Take away Annie's intelligence,
Right.
and that's me.
So, right, okay.
Yeah?
So Alex is like Annie, but then if you took Annie out, took the brain of Annie out, and then filled it full of
You should stop. You're terrible at
Warhammer.
You're terrible at telling jokes. That's
Yeah,
all I'm going to leave it with.
You criticised the first one I said, so you changed
I
it
criticised
round.
all of them. It's not even
It's 'cause none of them
the
make
joke
any
itself
sense.
that's the problem. It's just
None
the
of the
delivery.
jokes that I've said make any sense.
It's just the delivery, man.
We're not talking about jokes though, Alex.
Yeah, we are. We're talking
about
about
Joker.
Joker, who is terrible.
Ah,
who is terrible.
nice link.
Who is terrible at telling jokes like you.
Aha. Yes, see, it was all on purpose.
Next up, the next reference we're going to make is that you're going to come into school tomorrow and ask us, what do you get when you cross a mentally ill loner with a society who abandons him and treats him like trash? I'll tell you what you get. You get what you deserve.
Are you reading that?
No.
Or do you genuinely remember that?
I have said that joke I've said that quote so many times now that I can remember it off by heart. I probably mess up the bit where he's talking about society, but whatever.
Because I felt that was pretty spot on.
Cheers, man.
So what you do is you get Annie, you gender swap it, and then you stick the Joker quote in its mind. Job done.
Done. Describe
That's
me.
the joke.
Done it.
Done.
You've done it.
That was a good 10 minutes.
10 minutes of trying to come up with a way to describe me in the form of a joke.
Yeah. That don't work.
Good to know.
Doesn't work.
Good to know I'm not very easy to laugh at. Right, let's get on with it then.
So what were your thoughts on Joker first thing?
Oh God, where to start? It's very difficult to tell whether you're in his mind or the scene more than you. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite difficult at times to differentiate between his imagination and his mind and what he wishes was happening versus what's actually happening.
Yeah. Well, is that a good thing though, or did you not like that?
I think actually, you know what? I think that the way they did it was fantastic. I think that the fact that you can't really tell whether he's just imagining it or whether
that's really clever.
I found watching the film. Well, I suppose we'll get more into that later on. But I found that the film could be a bit slow at times, but I felt actually upon further consideration of it, I found actually that the way that they made the film run and the scenes that they decided to show were really cleverly done.
Yeah, they were. I think that there's a scene. Well, obviously we're doing spoilers now because this film's been out for like a month.
Oh yeah, if you've not seen this film by this point and you're listening to this podcast, it's your own fault.
Well, who is listening to this podcast, Alex?
That's a fair point.
Like 2 people.
Again, if you 2 people have not seen this film yet by this point, you should be disgusted. I want you to leave right now.
No, you've got to keep them. Got to keep them. I think the scene inside of the comedy club was really clever. I think that was a really good way of showing you what he sees and what actually happens, what actually is the events. Like, so he's sitting there making jokes and he thinks everyone's laughing at them, but it turns out that nobody's laughing at all.
Yeah,
I think that's quite a clever use of that sort
was
of
really well done. I think of
his own interpretation.
I think of all of the scenes where we're like seeing his reality versus other people's reality. For example, his the girl that he's in love with, I suppose you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Scenes with that, at the end you find out that it's all been fake and that he's never actually spoken to her outside of the elevator. And
yeah.
I think that the really great thing about the comedy club scene is that you within other films and other medias, you find that scenes like that are meant to convey progression. You know, it's meant to the story. It's meant to make them seem like a star now. But then it turns out that actually no one was laughing. Actually, it was all for nothing. It's ended up getting him on the face of a, laughed at. Rather than laughing with, laughed at.
Mm.
And I think that's one of the... On top of a lot of other things, and it's a bit of an obvious statement, but I find that that's probably one of the big turning points for his character, turning from Arthur into the Joker.
Yeah, and I think throughout the film you see that sort of that snap that I did a review. You get this sort of snap, and when that snap happens, you can see it visually that he's gone. You know that Arthur's gone. And there's that sort of grey area in between when the film doesn't want to go, oh my goodness, he's the Joker, but they kind of want to have him sort of sway between each personality.
I will actually say I read a really interesting review a couple of days ago about the Joker, or about the film as a whole, and it's been theorised that whole bit where he's on the Murray Show, the whole bit where he's actually the Joker, where he's the character, is all just in his head. And everything after he bashes the guy's head in, after he did that, he gets admitted to a mental hospital, and everything after that is actually...
Yeah, that's the joke, isn't it? That was the joke that the therapist person, wouldn't get.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of like the idea that we have multiple theories about how the movie ends, how people were saw the story and determining what's real and what's fake. But I think to a certain extent that annoyed me a little bit, right? Because you've got this kind of constant conflicted ideas. So let's take a look at some of the plot twists, right? When they sort of get the plot, they change it, but then they decide to actually change it back anyway. The idea that Arthur Fleck is Bruce Wayne's son is pretty cool, because it brings the idea that he's
Bruce Wayne's son. Do you mean Thomas Wayne?
Thomas Wayne's son, yeah. That he's been abandoned, that the city, that the people that are the most privileged in the city have left him behind, so you got that nice, society's quite literally dumped him. And then they kind of go, yeah, that's not correct, your mother's just mental. But then they spend 10 minutes on that. So you have to kind of just cut that bit out, and then, so that bit wasn't real. So then, now we're back at where we were 10 minutes ago, with 10 minutes passing.
This is kind of on the thing that I was saying earlier, about it's hard to differentiate between what's reality and what's just in Arthur's head. Yeah. And I think that's something that a lot of people, if Joker was meant to be a film where we're supposed to tell what's meant to be going on all the time, then of course a lot of people would be angry, a lot of people would be saying, the film was terrible. But the fact that we're not supposed to know what the hell is going on, and the whole point of the film is to confuse you, and it's supposed to be hard to grasp the reality of it. I find that really, really well done.
Yeah, I quite like all that stuff. Even that, you've got that grey area where I find some scenes boring, but it still is, at the end of the day, a very good, clever film. Even though at times it can be, I think, a little bit more, I think I'm way better than I actually am. Because when you look at it, you look at the story, it's no different to Taxi Driver. It's your very basic, psychopath becomes crazy and kills people kind of film.
I think that something really interesting here is that it kind of shows that it's meant to act as a sort of backstory to the character from Joker, or the character Joker in the DC universe, in Batman's timeline. And
it's not connected.
Well, it is though, isn't it? Because Bruce Wayne, Thomas Wayne.
Yeah, but it's not. It has the same characters, but none of the characters, it's not actually. That's not Kristen Bale.
Oh God, no. But the idea is that it's just meant to provide a sort of I think the interesting thing as well is the last time a film did this. Well, you could argue that Venom was not similar, but it was the same sort of film. It's the idea of watching a villain be developed. But the only issue with Venom is that it's trying to hint far too heavily towards the side of Venom being a hero now. You know.
You know, yeah, I see what you mean. Like, if they
Whereas
went it that way with Venom, then
with Joker, it tries, instead of making him seem like a hero, to make him seem more like a. It's meant to make us sympathise with him being a villain. You know, it's kind of us
yeah,
going and saying, "I understand now why he is the way he is." You know.
like, so I really did enjoy the film. Honestly, Will has told me multiple times that I didn't enjoy the film because I believed it was some kind of like superhero movie and there was no big action, fight scene at the beginning of the film, etc. And I really didn't believe that, but I just felt like because it went back and forth on itself, that it was simply not as entertaining as so many reviews have placed it as.
I think that it's good that there's a very good mixed viewpoint on this film, because
Hmm.
it's done what it was trying to achieve, which is confuse its audience. You know,
Yeah.
by confusing the audience, they come out of it either thinking, "Wow, that was a great film," or I'm not really all quite sure what to think about that." And I think that for all three of us, we all came out of that immediately
Well,
thinking, "Well,
everyone in our group has now seen it, haven't they? Our main group.
there's a very clear divide in our group actually
Well,
about about
yeah,
thoughts on the film." But the thing
yeah.
is that if you take, like, after you've finally seen it, if you haven't seen it, if you
Hmm.
take an evening just to research and ponder on the film itself, you'll do what I did, which is kind of realize, actually, this is this is a big cinematic win, you know, because we have
Yeah.
a villain hit film here, which doesn't try and portray the villain as a hero. The film knows exactly what it is, and it's doing a fantastic job of it.
So when you look at, the reviews of other people, like on Rotten Tomatoes, I believe that it was really high for quite a while, and then it has gone down gradually, which I've noticed. And I think that is, that's something to do with, I think, more people going, actually, this film is not as good as it was, because I just feel like aspects of it weren't, like, it's quite forgettable, I suppose, by the end of it. But, well, actually, it's not. It's
Not
quite the
necessarily
opposite.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not
Yeah.
quite forgettable, but I think the thing is it's a bit of a one-shot wonder. Once it's been
Yeah.
out, once you've seen it, you can't really experience it the same way you did when
That's
you watched
why
it the
I think
first
it's
time.
lucky to have this kind of interpretation stuff, because it didn't have all this interpretation. There wouldn't be a lot to talk about there.
Exactly. And I think the big thing is that if you were to go and watch the film again, you don't get the same sort of enjoyment out of it because you know what's coming. The big thing, actually, now that I think
I
about
wouldn't
it,
feel
that
like
I
I want to
loved
watch it
about
again.
Joker is that it's really hard at times to tell what's coming.
Yeah, it does feel like it's very careful. It knows what it's doing, but it's taking its time about doing it.
I was going to say, with Avengers Infinity War, we all knew that a sequel was coming. We all knew that this was going to be
Yeah.
2 films. And so when we all saw Thanos attacking, trying to get the last Infinity Stone, we all knew that it was going to happen. You know?
Yeah, we all, everyone had this thought in the back of their mind that really this is going to be the one that they lose. This is not going to be the end.
Whereas when you start watching Joker, the difference here is that you know at the end of it he's going to be the Joker. And you know at the start of it he's Arthur Fleck. But in the middle, it's very different. Again, things are very sudden. And at times it can be very hard to, like, predict what's going to happen. I think the biggest thing for me that proves this was his mother, because you look at his mother and there's no way in hell that you would think that she was in any way crazy, you know?
Yeah.
But then the psychiatric report is found by Arthur, and it turns out she was. She was admitted to a mental hospital for a long time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another plot twist. Or the first plot twist is Arthur is Thomas Wayne's son. But then another plot twist, which none of us would have seen coming, was that he was actually adopted. You know?
Yeah.
Because the plot twist in itself is very easy to believe. And you go through this whole... you go through quite a lot of it thinking the same things that Arthur does, in which you're like, oh my god, he's Thomas Wayne's son. And then when he gets the adoption papers, he's like, holy shit, he was adopted.
But this feels like a bit of a retcon, because it's like, oh, we've done this for 10 minutes, but now we're going to just wind it back and work out a different plot line.
Well, that's the thing, is that the whole point of the film is it's meant to allow Arthur to go down his slow descent of insanity. And it's one of those things where it's like, if they just did one plot twist and that was it, you know? There are at least 5 or 6, I would have said. And each of those
it
6
keeps the film
each have a
interesting.
plot twist following off of it on its own.
Right. So when you look at the reviews for Joker, would you say that, you know, they're quite mixed? Which is what I wasn't really expecting. You know, I was expecting those sort of reviews that are like, oh my goodness, it's the best film ever. And I think that at the end of the day, looking at the film myself, I would say that I don't agree with that.
I think it's definitely not the best film ever.
Yeah, I say that I enjoyed Endgame more than Joker. I would class Joker, rather than as a big cinematic hit, as more of an experience. Yeah.
I think that's why I say that you can't experience it the same way twice, you know?
Yeah, I would say that, you know, if you're going to watch Joker, you wouldn't want to watch it in bits.
Yeah, you have to watch the film from start to finish.
Yeah.
Because...
Like, not necessarily at the cinema, but, you know,
God, no.
You have to watch it, like, because when we watch it on this massive screen, it's like this dreary shot, and then this massive screen to display it on. It just seems quite counterproductive, you know. But you could probably watch it on your own television.
Yeah,
it's large anyway.
It's not a, or if you are, you got to watch it in the dark. I think that's it's, as I said, it's an experience. Watching it again, by no means should the film win an Oscar. You know, Joaquin Phoenix's performance though would.
That's the best bit about the film.
I think the best part about the entire film is Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. That was an incredible display. Is it Heath Ledger? Maybe not.
No, I would still say that he's better. He's got this sort of pizzazz to him, and I feel like Joker, like in this film, has this kind of like really dark sort of undertone to it that is portrayed really well.
I feel like it's fair to say that Heath Ledger's Joker is a lot more like the original Joker, whereas Joaquin Phoenix's Joker is more like a new take. It's not a bad take, but it's a fantastic take, but it's a new take. Mm-hmm. It's not really very much like the original, but it is fantastic. The thing that keeps on popping up in my head, actually, while I'm saying this, is the bit where he starts dancing. And I think that's one of the, in my opinion, favourite parts about this new... It's the idea that his style of dance at the time represents his mood, you know? So, like, at the start of the film, we see him very closed off.
Yeah, and as he begins to dance more, he gets crazier. Well, dance has always been this sort of part of him.
As time goes on, his dance gets more open, I think is the best word for it.
More
and
crazy.
That shows him building character.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like at the very end when he's on the Murray show, and he's like, and even, you know, when he's coming out of the interview room at the very, very end of the film, from the the mental hospital.
Yeah, psychiatrist.
Yeah, when he's coming out of the interview room, and he's, you know, dancing as he goes down. Throughout the film, the way that he dances represents his mood, and it allows us to sympathise with him further.
Right, if you finish talking about that, there's one little thing I just wanted to mention before we finish.
Yeah, go for it.
So it's about the controversy that comes from this film about violence and whether it actually incites violence or not. And I think that it's rubbish, to be honest. I think if someone's going to commit something violent, then they're going to do it whether they've seen a film or not.
You can interpret it as it's possibly going to incite violence.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it is kind of saying that the whole film is about someone who is constantly shunned by society. You know, he doesn't get the treatment he needs. He doesn't get what he needs to, you know, he's now losing basic living needs. And it's the idea that by making this massive statement, he's going for change, you know? He's saying, we need to make change. And in no way am I sitting here defending Joker, you know? The things that he does are in no way good. You know?
Yeah.
But the idea is that, you know, the quote in the film people are starting to notice. You know, it's the whole thing of by him killing those 3 people on the subway, it's allowed him to get out and be himself and be, you know, more.
Yeah, I think that what we shouldn't take away from the film is, oh look, you know, violence is caused by crazy people, which means that everyone's going to rise up and kill everyone.
Oh no,
that's not true. What we should look at is the fact that we can prevent it, because Arthur Fleck is, you know, he's basically a case that if he got help, he could have been saved, and the Joker would have never arisen. They don't go that far with the film, but
it's a big statement, in my opinion, on mental health and what really needs to be done with it. Because
they could have gone further with it. To be honest, they didn't like at the end. They go, look, you know, all of this could have been avoided. They kind of just went, oh, it's the Joker now.
Even though in a lot of places mental health is becoming more of a concern and more is being done, it's fair to say that still not enough is being done.
Yeah,
you know? And a lot.
You know, the cuts that we see during the film, you know, like things like his therapist is taken from him.
Exactly.
And, you know, that is also a reason why he becomes crazier, because he can't bounce off someone anymore.
It's the fact that the smaller people on the chain, you know, are going to be left behind.
Yeah, you know, and the privileged, the rich.
And he's trying to say, I ain't going to let that happen. I'm gonna help the smaller people rise up.
Yeah,
that's what my calling is.
Well, that's what the the media are concerned about, is the thing that, like,
you know what, I don't
rise.
It could be a bit controversial what I'm gonna say, but if people are getting concerned about it, does it say that we're not doing enough? If you want to make change, do it. You know, it could be something as simple as just asking someone, "Are you all right?" You know, it's one of those things where concern is derived from the fact that you feel like you're in a similar situation, you know.
And in fact, you know, when you said like that "Are you alright" thing, he had one person that he liked, wasn't it, where he worked?
Yeah.
Who he let live, but everyone that, you know, the bigger man, you know, he killed because
it was one of those,
did him wrong.
Exactly. It's one of those things where, again, saying that concern about it suggests is enough being done, you know. It's a big statement, and it might be a bit controversial, but it's one of those things where it's like, again, it can all be avoided, you know. And a lot of stuff is being done for mental health, you know. We're trying to make it more well known. We're trying to make it better for people who suffer.
All right, so if is that the last thing you want to say? Do you want to say anything else before we finish?
Yeah, I suppose the whole point of this podcast is just to speak our views about things, and
films, and
it can sometimes get a bit controversial, and it can get a bit debate worthy.
That's what I want, isn't it? You want to be able to talk about, you know, the messages in films, and
it's always the question of, from the film, that from Joker we can ask, is enough for mental health being done?
Oh, great. Well, I'm glad you got that statement. Thank you very much for joining me this month.
Thank you for having me on.
You did a very good job.
Much appreciated.
Well done. You're much deeper than Will when it comes to your arguments.
Mate, I love debating about this stuff, I'll be honest.
Yeah, that's why I thought you would be good to, like, do this episode. Because I thought we'll get to the controversy bit, and I think Alex would be, like, perfect at that. I really wanted to get to it quicker. I didn't think it was too controversial, to be honest.
But it does spout the question. It does spout the question. If people are you get concerned because, you know, you feel concern is like a mixed feeling of guilt and stress, you know. It's the idea of, could I be doing more?
Thank you very much for joining me. Next month I'll probably be with Will. I was hoping to talk about a Doctor Who trailer that comes out in the future, but, you know, it's been like a whole week and they haven't revealed anything yet. So maybe Children in Need next week we might get something, and if we do, then we'll be talking about it in the following week. So thank you very much for joining me.
You're welcome.
We shall see you soon.
See you soon, man.
Goodbye.
Bye.